What's up, guys? This is Mrradillo back with another episode of Mrradillo's World. I am, just go life update here. I've been a little sick lately. I've been having a cough and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of haven't done this in a bit. So if I cough or anything, I'll try to edit that out, but apologies. So just a life update. I didn't get to finish my thesis this semester like I wanted to. I completed it all, but my professor kind of like tore it up, so I have to take an additional the class in the summer to really refine it and add more work to it. He said it was good. I had strong arguments, but he said it was more geared towards like a Christianity Today type of post rather than a master thesis, which I get it. And he said I included my opinion too much, and I didn't let the research speak for me, kind of thing. So that was a tough conference that I had with him, but ultimately I think it'll be better. Because like there's all these things that sometimes like I let things build up, and I take it harder than I probably should. And criticism is like that for me. Like, I have a hard time with criticism, and this is now just kind of going into my topics here, because we're going to talk about some criticism, failure, and then I want to talk about change. This is kind of what I want to talk about in this podcast, but it's something that I've noticed within myself as I've grown up and as I've aged and matured. Like my tolerance for criticism has gotten better, but that's still something I really struggle with criticism, because I put, like that specific paper, I put so much effort into it. I put my everything, and then ultimately for the betterment of me, right? Because it's going to be a better paper in the long run. But that's hard to take, and it's hard to take that like you suck kind of thing. And it's not that you suck. It's just more of like you did good, but you can do better, right? That's always been hard for me. And I look back on my life and mistakes that I've made and things of that nature, and a lot of them have to do with criticisms. Because when I would get criticized, because I was putting everything into it, I'd feel like this big. You know what I mean? I would feel that I was sucking at it and I was a failure in life but ultimately people were trying to help me, but I didn't recognize that they were trying to help me. And it reminds me of that scripture, the Lord chastises who he loves, right? And that makes sense to me from a rearing standpoint, from a parenting standpoint, but it never made sense to me from like strangers, you know what I mean? Like, or people that were invested with me. And I guess like I just didn't recognize that they were wanting better for me. And so they would criticize, and really they wanted me to grow from that. But I took it so hard internally that it kind of rocked me to my core and my foundation. And obviously, if you know me, you know that I'm a sensitive person. I'm a talker and I like to joke and things of that nature. But I'm a very sensitive person. And so when people come at me, I think it stems from growing up and things of that nature. But when people at times come at me, I take it personally rather than, hey, I can grow from this. And I was thinking about life, and then I'm kind of going to slide into, like, criticism is good, right? It's good. I mean, obviously, if you're overcritical, it's not great, and people don't really want to be around you, right? But if you are trying to help someone grow and see something that they don't see, it's actually valuable to have that criticism given to you so that you can grow and change and become better as a person. I was thinking about failure, because for me, when I do something, I give my all to it, but then I have these like moments of failure, and I get broken from this failure. And it's like, and yes, you hear that, like, it's only failure if you, no, failure is not a bad thing, right? People say, like, it's only a bad thing if you just stay in the failure. You know what I mean? If you use it as a stepping stone to learn and keep going, right? there's that saying by Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison, someone asked him about failing to make a light bulb 100 times, right? He said, I didn't fail. I learned 100 ways not to make a light bulb. And that's kind of like, it's almost like a shifting of perspective of looking at failure. But for me, and maybe because I'm so critical of myself, sometimes I've paralyzed myself and went through deep mourning periods. Like, for example, I sold a business, right? I've talked about this on here a couple times. But for me, that selling of the business, because, like, yes, it was good to sell the business, but we kind of broke even, you know what I mean? For me, that felt like such a failure that I wasn't able to hack it, that I wasn't able to be better as a business person. That felt like real failure, right? It felt like failure when I had my first, like, corporate job and I quit that job. That felt like a failure to me because I couldn't just stick it out. I couldn't just, and lots change, and I've matured a lot, and I realized I wasn't thankful for what I had, so I was wanting more and more and more. I mean, that's a different story, but I was really thinking about all these times where I felt like a failure, you know what I mean? And luckily, God was so patient with me. Even in our ignorance, God is just so faithful to us. And I think about myself in my younger years and to where I am now and how foolish I had been at times. You know what I mean? Things I'd done, mistakes, things I said. Sometimes, like, I did not think before I spoke. And it caused me problems down the road. You know what I mean? A lot of these things I realize are my fault because I have such a problem with criticism and because I'm so hard on myself. And I hold myself to such a standard to where, like, I need to figure it out and I need to be better, that I find myself at times going in these moments of paralyzation and these moments of crisis, and I feel like my world's been rocked. And I'm being over dramatic, yes, I understand that. Like, I know I am sensitive. But what I just recognize is that, like, I needed to go through some of those things I did. And I didn't need to choose the decisions I did. I didn't make the bad choices that I did, right? Like, I didn't need to quit a job that was a really good job. I needed to be thankful for that job. But what it did is it put life into perspective for me and enabled me to be more thankful for life. Be more thankful for the job that I have now. I'm not making as much money as I was in that first good job, and that was a really good job. But I'm thankful for this job now, and I'm content in that God has just provided me something, right? I don't need to get ahead of myself, get more full of myself, or think that I am more than I am, right? Like, I know who I am. I know who God has created me to be. Like, I'm more confident in the role I am. I'm more confident in the fact that I'm preparing to be a father, right? We're not expecting yet, but we're actively trying to expect, right? But I'm confident in just who the Lord is making me now. But I needed all these failures that when I'm in them, it felt like I was broken. It felt like I was truly useless. It really did. It felt like it was almost like I didn't know what I was doing with my life. Like, I had got to school, I got an MBA, I was doing well in life, and then that all left. I was still doing things. I was teaching. I was a youth pastor. I was subbing. You know what I mean? I was still making money and things of that nature. But then I opened my business, and it was like, yes, finally I get to do what I've wanted to do my entire life. And then that failed, right? And then I'm getting my master's degree of theology, and then I get my thesis where I think it's really good, and I put all this effort into it, and then I get ripped apart. You know what I mean? So each one of those moments needed to happen. It needed to happen to put me on the path to where I am now. But in the moment, it felt like my world was crushed. And so, like, I just want to encourage someone who's listening, if you are, if not, like, there's going to be moments in your life you think you think you're kind of alone. You think God has abandoned you. You think, God, like, why am I going through that? What have I done? And a lot of times we're just being hyperbolic, because the Lord is there with us. But at times I think what God wanted to show me too is that, like, He was the most important. Right? I was elevating all these different things in my life, and I was doing them, I felt like pure in heart, but they weren't the thing to sustain me, right? God is ultimately the one that sustains me. And He's so good that He, regardless of my failures, regardless of my brokenness, regardless of me not following His plan or me not choosing Him, He's still good to me and faithful to me. And like, I just want to encourage you that if you're going through any time of thing, like of struggling with criticisms or struggling with failure or struggling with that you think that you suck, right? I just want you to know you don't. You don't. It'll get better. It'll get better. Perspective tends to heal those times, and you start looking back and you're like, what was I freaking out about? Why was I so emotional? Why was I shedding these tears? And those tears are not bad, right? Because sometimes you can't handle things. Sometimes it's good to let emotions out, right? But you can't be an emotional basket case all the time, because then no one will want to be around you, right? But I remember I was having a conversation with my mom after this, and I was just having a pity party. I really was. But like, if you start reading God's word, read Ecclesiastes, and like there's times for failure, there's times for joy, there's times for peace. Like the life we live is so multifaceted, but we tend to live in that exact moment, and we become paralyzed to that moment, right? But as the further we are from that moment, the more we realize, hey, life's going pretty good. I have a roof over my head. I have food to eat. I have a beautiful, loving wife, right? I have a job to provide for my family, right? I have friends. I have family. Like, I have cars that I can go places. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm really, truly blessed. I don't have much to complain about. But yet all you can see is that problem, right? And you're so focused on it that's all you can see. And then God kind of is like away, and you feel so alone because you're broken from this problem. I just want you to know that, like, I've been there too, right? But God is faithful. It rains on the just and on the unjust. One of my favorite verses, Job 1:21, I believe. I'm going to look that up real quick. Job 1, and I'll start with 20. And at this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell on the ground in worship and said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be blessed. Be praised, Like, the reason that's my favorite verse is because if you keep reading too, it's, in all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. Right? At times, we're not Job, right? We do blame God for our wrongdoing. Like, God, why would you do this to me? But in reality, Job had the perspective that literally his life was torn from him, right? His physical body was torn, right? But he still seen God for who He was and His goodness. That God gave him these things. He's taken them away. But regardless, praise God for who He is. And that's all I wanted to leave you. It's not going to be a super complicated podcast or anything like that. I'm going to shift to another topic here in a minute. But I just wanted to let you know, if you're struggling with decisions you've made or circumstances in your life and you feel like a failure, first I want you to just stop and take a deep breath. Right? Joy comes in the morning. Right? God is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins, right? He's not going to leave you in that place. But what He could be doing is wanting you to draw closer to Him, right? Some of the things that we think should work out that don't work out, and we're mournful because those things didn't work out, but we don't know what those things could have brought us. You don't know what challenges those things could have brought you. So I want to just encourage you that God has a plan for your life. He loves you, and He wants just you to be with Him, right? And regardless if you take this or not, like, who am I, right? Just know that God is really just waiting. He's just waiting to be close to you. He's waiting for you to draw to Him so that He could draw to you, kind of thing. Like, I was thinking about this. Like, at times I get sad because, like, I'm never going to be a new Christian again. And the Lord kind of checked me, and it was like, I'm right here. You can experience even more in me than you did when you first started. But times I let things get in the way of getting close to Him, that I allow distractions to come, and I allow things that separate me from Him, and then I wonder why I'm feeling so alone. I'm wondering why I'm feeling so depressed. I'm wondering why I'm feeling all these things when I've separated myself from the very giver of life. We don't think about in these terms a lot, but if you really think about sin and everything that God tells us not to do, leads us to destruction, right? The wages of sin is death, but we don't think in those terms, right? But what's happening is we're separating ourselves from life of Christ, and now we're literally wallowing in death and going down in death, and we're wondering, why am I feeling so bad? Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to go too heavy, but I wanted to move on to a new topic and talk about change. Change is a really constant part of life. You know, there's seasons, things of nature. Time keeps moving forward, no matter if you want it to or not. But I wanted to do a little reflection on just my life and the different relationships that God has put in my life for seasons, and then He's removed for seasons. And it sometimes it saddens me, because sometimes I love those relationships. I love those people. I love the closeness that we had at that time, and I miss it sometimes. And not saying that God just puts people in it, but He kind of does. What I'm not saying is you can't have future relationships with Him. You certainly can. But for me, I tend to just reminisce and realize that, and I wouldn't trade my life for anything now. I love it. I love where I am. But I do miss those times as a kid when I had all those people coming over to my house, and we were playing games and eating food, and we were socializing and loving each other and really just enjoying life with each other. And then when I was a young man and I was living with all my bros and all the interactions we got to have with that, those were amazing, special times, both of those instances. And I sometimes I get to the point where I'm longing, and it's hard thinking about the change of life into even geography of where I'm at compared to where I was, and I can't have those relationships. But what I do know is I love all those people. I harbor no ill will towards anyone, truly. Like, I love you. If you're listening to this, if you're not, like, that's fine. But I just wanted to add some perspective to this reminiscing that I'm doing. Is like, I wouldn't trade my life currently for moments of those. You know what I mean? Because, like, yes, I do miss people, and I miss having relationships and being close to people. I also love my wife, and I love that we're trying to start a family now, right? And it's almost like I had to get out of those moments, and I had to, in order to move forward, right? Like, me and my buddy Junior, I love him to death. He's still my buddy, and we'll always be close in a sense. But now he's busy with his life and his raising his kid, and we're separated by geography, and we both have busy schedules, and so it's like we don't have the time to be around each other or talk to each other all the time like we used to. You know what I mean? And I miss that, and that's okay to miss those things, right? But he wouldn't trade what he has now for those moments back then, and nor would I, right? Because ultimately life changes, and that's a good thing, because like it allows you to mature and allows you to grow and allows you to be the person you need to be in that time, right? Like I think about this, like, not that the Lord needed to separate me and my wife from the people we love, right? But he almost did to help us grow into who we needed to be in order to raise the family we wanted. You know what I mean? But I still cherish those times and miss those people that we were with. I do. Like I think that's human nature. I miss having people play games and playing cards and enjoying. Like I miss it, right? And this is all to say is like life changes, and you never know what people are going to be around you. You do know what close people you will have, regardless, right? You know what family you'll have, you know. But sometimes you miss certain stages in your life. But you had to change. You had to move on. And not that those times weren't great, and not that you don't love those times or even love those people. It's just a sense of maturity that we're not always going to be together. We move, and just our decisions to live places separate us. Right? I was thinking about Christ. And this isn't the same. It's not the same exact scenario, but Christ knew that there was a time that he was going to be gone from the disciples. And he was saddened because he was doing his mission, and they didn't quite understand that he was going to be gone and that he was going to leave them. Right? And they didn't want that. Right? And the disciples had no idea. They were just living in that moment. And I'm sure as Christ left and died on the cross and then rose again and then ascended, I'm sure there was a miss and a love of being with the closeness of Christ, right? But God still allowed them and allowed them to have a comforter so that he could be with them at all times. You know what I mean? Like those memories and those people will always have a part of you, right? You'll always have that time together. And you may make new times, and that's amazing, right? But the Lord, maybe not even just the Lord, like you have to mature in order to grow. Because you can't stay that same person forever. You have to adapt, right? Otherwise, you'll be a kid trying to raise a kid. You know what I mean? Like, you have to mature. You have to grow up. You have to move on. But it doesn't make it any easier. Like, change is something that is hard. But you know who doesn't change? It's Jesus Christ, because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? And if we just put our trust in him, like, what are we worried about? Yes, the change may be frightening, but we don't have to be defined by the change or caught up in how terrible the change is, or it's okay to miss and reminisce, but it's dangerous to consistently live in the past, because then you miss your present, you miss your future, right? And it's dangerous to live in the future because what are you worried about? That's why it's good to live in the now and live in where God has for you and be content. I preached this message one time. It was about David. And Samuel was coming to anoint the new king. And Jesse got all of his sons together. He got all of his sons who he thought would be the next king, right? And one by one, Samuel was like, okay, this one's going to be the king. This one's going to be. But you know who wasn't there was David. David was in the field attending the sheep, doing what God had for him. We get so caught up in the next thing and what's going to be, right? That like even other people do. They don't even expect what God has for you, right? But what David did was just show contentness in that moment to what God had for him, and he became the king of Israel, right? Like it's not about what you've lost or what you've gained or how different life is, because it's going to be. That is what life is. It's changing, it's adapting. We grow, we change, right? There are certain things we deal with that others won't deal with. There's changes in life that happens. You lose loved ones. New loved ones come into the world, right? You separate. You don't see each other for a long time. But when you come together, it's great, right? But all that change and everything that goes on, just know that God is faithful, and don't fret about the change. Because sometimes I've been guilty, and I'm going on too long, and I'm going to stop here in a second. I've gone to a point to where the change hurt me. The change was saddened. I was saddened by the change. And ultimately, I felt like I lost something. But what I really wasn't, I didn't lose any of those people, right? Those people still love me. I still love them. Yes, we're not as close in geography, and we're not as close. Like, we don't talk every day. But when we're together, it's still the same. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be this thing where you're always with people, right? And I think that the point I'm trying to make is like, people come and go in life in general, right? We're not all for this earth forever. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a reason why God changes us and changes our circumstances around us, and it really is to get close to Him, because that's the entire point, right? Anyways, I'm rambling. Let me know what you guys think. Like, did anyone struggle with criticism or failure or change? Failure or change? Am I just like on a soapbox right now? I don't know. I'm just I'm talking without any purpose. I'm gonna end it here. This has been another episode of Mrradillo's World. Thanks everyone. Love you.